this business because 90% of the people that I've met at the that are successful in this business are just successful people in life. Like they just are like good humans. And so it's always fun to connect because I just always have that trust that like, wow, like that was so fun. This is just an awesome person. I actually used to be one of those girls that used to hate other girls. So I was an athlete in college and I was like, girls are too much drama. Like I would never be in a sorority. And then like now I'm like, it's so different because you're dealing with women and you're dealing with people who have hopes and dreams. You're not dealing with petty girls who are trying to like push you down. So that for me, was one of the like most surprising things about like what I learned about myself coming into the business. Cause I was like, I'll just hang out with dudes. They're like so much easier to hang out with, that was definitely something that I was kind of nervous about hopping into the business, but it's been such an unexpected blessing. So you guys, I got started 3.5 years ago. I actually got started just to get some hair and nail money, to be honest with you. I had just had my baby. She was 5 months old at the time, and you'll probably hear my kids running around. I have a 2 and 4-year-old now. So it was 3.5 years ago. And I just remember talking to my husband. He was a college basketball coach at the time. And I just remember being like, hey, what are we doing wrong? Like we both went to school. We both got our degrees. We got our masters. I graduated with like a 3.9. He graduated like cum laude. Like it was like we did everything like society tells you you're supposed to do. We made good money like on paper, but we had nothing to show for it at the end of the day, which was kind of embarrassing to be honest, because we were just living and we grew up in totally opposite like ends of the spectrum, not like totally, but I grew up in more of like I don't want to say like privilege because I think people think like, oh, everybody was driving Mercedes and stuff, but like I never had to worry about like where gas was coming from when I was in high school or whatever. And then he grew up and like had to sleep on floors sometimes and would hop from home to home with his mom. And so we had different standards. So like he thought like we were doing good. Like he was like, we're freaking killing it. I'm like, this is not good for me because I just had a separate standard. And so he always says like, if it wasn't for like me having that standard, we would have probably just still been like, just chilling, like, making on paper a good amount of money, but not really, saving anything or doing anything. And so I guess like I relate a lot to people who don't come from that, rags to riches story, but who just always know, like I always knew I was going to be rich, like for some way, like I don't know how, I just knew I was going to have a lot of money. I knew that somehow, some way that was going to happen. I just did not expect it to be this. And so for us, like I just really feel like the business found us at that time. But if somebody, I signed up with Erin Tweed. I knew Kyle, her husband, a little bit from college. And so I remember just like seeing pictures of his son and all this stuff. And then like she was tagging him in stuff. And so I remember seeing a couple of things that she was tagging him in. And when that time came, so this was about a year she had been in the business. And so I watched her but like never ever, not once ever thinking, can I do that? It was more of a, okay, cool, good for her. But I never seen anybody go big enough. I was literally thinking this was for people who couldn't get real jobs. Like I had all the negative stereotypes out there. And so for me, it was like jokes on me. God always has a sense of humor and makes us laugh about what we end up doing because I was like totally like one of those people. So I remember reaching out to her after we were driving through this really nice area of Indianapolis and being like, babe, who lives in these houses? Like, what are these people doing? Because I don't need a house like that right now, but like within the next like 10 years, we need to be moving in that direction. And we weren't moving anywhere. And he was just like, I don't know. I just feel like everybody has a side hustle. And I was like, oh, maybe you're right. So then I ended up like thinking about that. And then she popped into my mind and, daycare was making all of our expenses tight. And so I was just like, you know what? Like, I just really want to find something that, I don't have to like leave the home or whatever. Cause I was never been scared of hard work. I actually like working hard. I just want to feel like I'm getting compensated for it. Cause at the time I was working at a bank and I wasn't making a ton of money. And it just felt like, I remember like the kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me is when I went into my bank job after my annual review, and I had asked for a raise because I got like all these awesome like reviews, and they were like, you're so awesome, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, I would love to, like, you know, just having a baby, like a $5,000 raise would mean a lot. And I went in, I asked for a raise, and they were just like, it's not in the budget. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, how am I going to let like somebody else's budget define how I leave a legacy for my family? Like, I can't. Like, that was just like a moment where I felt so out of control of like my situation. And then I was just like, I need to do something. So I hopped in just to make $500 because I wouldn't let myself dream any bigger than that. And so 4 months later, I went diamond. And then a year after, like 9 months after I went diamond, both me and my husband went double. And then a year after that, both me and him went triple. So in not this March, but last March, we both went triple. So, and then we really started seeing like life-changing income. And then then I promoted to presidential in September. So it took a little bit longer to get to presidential than I wanted. But that's okay. That's okay. I'm so grateful for it. And I'm so grateful for the journey, because I definitely had to do a lot of growing and learning along the way. You know, just shifts and things. And my journey, you know, it hasn't always been like totally uphill. But that's what I appreciate about it, because I don't think anybody could relate to somebody who was just like, as long as, I mean, we all want that, but like, it doesn't necessarily happen that way. So, I'm always grateful for like the lessons that I'm trying to be taught during that time. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. But it's cool that I will tell you guys. So I know most of you guys are leaders on here. And so one thing I want to say to you is that you can make a lot of money at any rank. Like last year I was at conference, and as a triple, and I was a number 98 income earner. And my first triple paycheck was like way more than a press check. So like, don't limit yourself based on your rank, and don't define your leadership based on your rank either. I'm a huge believer in that. Like, I try not to like, you know, I'm always a student of the business. So if there's a Ruby on my team who's killing it, like, I'm going to go ask her what she's doing. Like, I'm going to be like, hey, like, what are you doing? What's working? Like, I've had girls on my team who join who like try to teach me how to do Snapchat and like do different things that like I'm not used to, because the business is always changing. And so what worked for me 3 years ago is not working for me now. And the thing that I always try to make a point of is like, I never want to be the best person on my team. I always want to train people who become better than me. And not because I limit myself, but because I'm having them become better than me. And that's truly when you know, like, you're doing something right as a leader. Even though it kind of sucks when you're like, you guys are like sharing numbers and you're like, yeah, wasn't the top enroller this month. That's not it's humbling, I guess is what I'll say. It definitely keeps me humble. So for that, I'm grateful. But yeah, just start asking me questions, because Amanda, I will literally just ramble and just go like I have like a squirrel brain.
Okay, awesome. No, I love your story. And I was just going to say too that I think it was Cami or somebody said, like, you know, like anybody who gets to double or diamond or triple, or, you know, our leadership ranks, they're never like, oh man, I wish I would have done that like 6 months ago. You know what I mean? Like, there's like, we're so proud. Like, it took me, you know, I've been in this business for 5 years. I went presidential in May, but I'm never like, oh my gosh, like I wish I would have went a year ago. You know what I mean? Like, our journey is our journey. And just like you said, it doesn't matter what rank you're at. Like, you could be making that rank, the average of like that rank above, you know, like I know that there's several doubles on here and diamonds on here that are making that over that double pay or over that diamond pay. And so, or, you know, vice versa. So it's just, you know, we enjoy our journey, and, you know, and if we want something more, then we just work for what we want more, you know? So, and
I always say, like, I think it's super important to build like bank over rank. And what I mean by that is like, rank is important, obviously, because it will build your bank, because you're going to get paid on different things. You're going to, every time you promote, you add different levels to the compensation plan. But I think that like, it can be really frustrating if you're not making the average of that rank. Like, I know I would much rather be a triple making pres pay than a pres making triple pay, if that makes sense. And so it can be really frustrating because you have a certain expectation when you hit the rank. So make sure that like you're tight and you're doing it right. Like, that's what I always tell my team. I'm like, I know we're so eager to get there, but you want to make sure that, you know, at every level, people who promote really quick, at some point their brain has to catch up to their income. Or people who promote a little bit slower, your income catches up to your rank, right? And so, I mean, your income catches up to your mind. But even if your income, you know, there's the quote, your income will never exceed your self-development, which is very true. But sometimes in this business, because of momentum, it can happen. And so be aware of that when you see people promote to double or triple in like 3 or 4 months, because they still have a ton of growing to do. It's just, where are the growing pains coming in? And so know that everybody goes through a lot of the same growing pains. It's just, where are you when that happens? And can you still work through those growing pains? Like, can you still sign people when you're growing? Can you still, you know, battle your way through? And that's the true test of like a leader, in my opinion. And so that for me is definitely, like, I'm a huge believer in that. And you know, making sure that your leadership isn't defined by your rank, and you don't think like, oh, I have to be Ruby to host my own Zooms, or I have to be Diamond to do this or whatever. Like, no, if you want to be Diamond, you should be doing that before you get to Diamond, because that's how you will get to Diamond. So I always say, start behaving like a Diamond before you become it, because that's how you get there, right? You don't want to say, oh, when I get to Diamond, I'll start acting like one. Then you'll never get there. You have to start acting like one before you'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely. You work with what, you know, if you want Diamond, then you work like a Diamond. If you want double,
Yes.
you work like a double. Okay, so how do you, because we have on this Zoom right now, it's all diamonds and doubles.
Okay, awesome.
And some of us have brought on other emerging leaders who they're just diamonds in our mind. They're already leaders in our mind.
Mm-hmm.
They're just rocking it. They're doing amazing. So how do you lead your team so that you're creating that layered leadership, so that you are, you know, not only like showing them you're leading from the front, but, you know, it's also creating it where they're, like you said, if they're Rubies, they're doing their own team. Like, they have 5 people underneath them. They should be leading their team also. So how are you creating that layered leadership?
Yeah, that's actually a really, really good question. Sorry, I had to move to the bathroom. Like, some of my outlets aren't working in my house, and I have no idea why. So like, I'm like in the bathroom with my computer charger because it's about to die, but it's fine. Okay. But so when I'm creating layered leadership, like, this is one of my favorite topics, because I think, like, if you know how to build leaders in this business, you can make a crap ton of money. Okay. And so when you're teaching and implementing layered leadership, the first thing I say is, and it sounds very simple, but it has to start in your vocabulary when you're talking to people. So it has to start with you saying, you know, oh my gosh, your team is doing so awesome, not the girls that I placed on your team, right? Or, you know, like, if you're helping them chart or whatever, because I think there's like a habit of some people just saying like our team, which isn't bad. Like, whenever I'm talking about we're promoting, I'm like, our team promoted, not just me. But like, when I'm talking about really trying to implement that leadership and being like, dude, your team is killing it, I'm giving them that ownership of the team, right? So I'm helping them say, this is your team, and I'm in the passenger seat. So, and I'm a huge believer on communication. Okay. I really feel like when you communicate clearly, that so much more can like there's no guessing game for the other person, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So they don't have to say like, especially, you know, one thing I've learned, I don't know if you guys do like the color personality test really big or whatever, but we're not like obsessed with it, but I definitely reference it a lot. And so for one thing that I do say to people is, you know, make sure that when you're dealing with yellows, people a lot of times don't want to do any confrontation with yellows. But the biggest thing when you're dealing with like people who just are more sensitive, if you guys aren't familiar, just maybe more sensitive and more like they're just like kind of, they're emotional in a good way. Like, they are very in tune with other people's emotions. They're very compassionate. Those are like what I think of when I think of yellows. With yellows, like, I used to be so scared to give them any sort of constructive criticism or whatever, because I would fear that they would like be really, really nervous about it. But one thing I just say is, I'm like, the biggest fear for yellow in almost any color is trying to guess where you stand. Are you upset with them? Are you like, or you think they're doing a good job? Like, so don't let them try to guess where they stand with you. So what I mean by that is if you think like, hey, I want you to be hosting your own Zooms, I can hop on for the first couple of times, but I really think that you can do it yourself. That's what they want to know. They don't want to try to guess how you're freaking feeling, because then they're like, does she hate me? Does she like me? Did she not call me today? And then they're going through all of this brain energy wasting activity that really is not income producing for anybody. And so if you can just be very like blunt and not in an aggressive way, but in just say, hey, this is kind of what I'm expecting from you, it relieves everybody's kind of stress, like of where do I stand and trying to figure that out. Because this business is built a lot on relationships. And if somebody can trust that they're always going to get the truth from you, they're going to trust you to lead them. And even though it's not necessarily going to be something they like to hear all the time, it's going to make them better. And that as a leader is your main goal, is did that conversation I just had with them make them a better person, make them a better leader, make them a better distributor. And so I always try to, when I'm implementing layered leadership, is have very clear communication about what our expectations are. And I don't expect it to change overnight. So what I mean by that is like, let's say I'm like, okay, girl, you're so ready to train your own people. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to hop on the next training when you sign a distributor, I'm going to hop on the next training with you. I want you to take notes, watch what I do, how I train, things that you like, maybe things that you want to change and put your own spin on. Okay. And then the next time I'm going to do half of it and you're going to do half of it. And then the last time I'm going to get on and I'm going to kind of tell you what you did really well and maybe a couple of things you can improve on, but you're going to be doing it all yourself. And I might just hop on and share my story. Okay. So I am showing them this is how we're going to do it. And I'm not just throwing you into the woods. I'm kind of weaning you off, but then you're giving them that, you're empowering them. Yes, Courtney, it's such a good word. It's one of my favorite words. It's when you empower people, they see something in themselves they didn't even know they had, but you see in them. And so many times I think people fail to rise to leadership roles because we are suffocating them and we're trying to do everything themselves. And if you guys don't listen to Craig Rochelle, he is freaking amazing. He, if you guys have the YouVersion Bible app, he's one of the founders for that. And he's a pastor at a church, and it's GROSCHEL. Yeah. And it's Craig, CRAIG. And he has a leadership podcast. He also, if you go to Life Church is the name of his church, he also gives you free notes on there if you put in your email, so you can get like a summary. Literally one of the most clear communicators. He will blow your mind in 20 minutes, and that's all it takes. And he always stays on task. Like, he is a very effective communicator, but he will like literally give you so much to think about. So a couple of my favorite things that he says are, number one, is a great leader always does two things. They give people permission to fail and room to rise. And I was like, that is so true, right? Because most of the time we're either doing one or the other. We're giving like, and I think a lot of us do give people room to rise and we're waiting for them to rise up, but we're not communicating that we're waiting for them to rise up. Or if we're waiting for them to rise, we don't give them permission to fail during them rising up, right? We always just talk about, oh, we're double diamond or we're this or we're that, but we don't talk about the fact that we went to try to go double diamond for 5 freaking months in a row. And when we tried to go double diamond, we had 7 times that we like had miscalculated volume. I mean, we don't talk about that. And so I'm super vulnerable with my team. Like, I will tell them about all my failures. I will tell, and by doing that, you guys, you're giving them permission to tell you about theirs so that you can fix it. Okay. And here's a very clear point that I want to make. Being vulnerable does not mean bitching, excuse my French, but it does not mean bitching to your team. What it does mean though, is once you like, so if I'm going through something right now, like, for instance, I'll give you an example. We just moved into a new house, and I had a horrible time with a realtor. It was like one of the worst experiences of our life, like literally cost us a lot of money. And it was so stressful during that time. But like, I just like found a way to work my business, and I didn't complain about it like to anybody. But once it was over, once like I had mentally gotten myself like figured out and I understood what I could learn from that experience, that's when I told them. Okay. Because you're just complaining if you don't have a solution, or you're just agreeing, because we all want to be like relatable leaders, right? But some of my new leaders who are up and coming, sometimes what they do is the other girl will be like, gosh, my hosted posts aren't working. And they'll be like, yeah, my hosted posts aren't working either. And they'll almost just say that because they want to agree and have some like relation and I want to connect with you on some level. But they don't say, oh my gosh, girl, that happened to me one time and here's what I did to fix it, right? They're just agreeing about complaining. And that's very different than being relatable and being understanding. So don't come to your downline and don't talk to them unless you have like a solution to help them out. Then you can say, hey, I understand how you feel because I felt that way before. I'm not still in that. And I'm going to give you a solution to help you come out of that. Do you guys understand like the difference between that? Because I think it's a very clear distinction that it's easy to see like now that you can take a step back and look at it, but when you're in the moment, you're like, well, I was just being relatable. Like, you know, and it's so hard because I've done that so many times where I'm like, yeah, I was just talking about how nothing was working for me because that's sometimes how I feel, but you're not helping them. Right? You're just trying to be their friend. You're not trying to be their leader. So that's something I always tell my team is by giving them that permission to fail, you know, it's you telling them about your failures in a positive light and saying, hey, I went through that same thing, but here's how I got out of it. And so we use like the feel, felt, found rule. So understand how you feel. I've felt that way before, but here's what I found.
I love that.
I'm trying to think if there's any other layered leadership things that I do. I mean, I do a ton of them. It's just like I don't have like a.
I love how for like their training. So like if they're Ruby, okay, we're gonna do like one together, and then the next one, okay, you're gonna do half of it. I'm gonna do the other half, and then you watch them and you guide them through that. I think that that's so huge, and I think that that's one thing that like. I think for just speaking for just seeing like the team, like I think that, Ruby's coming in, like, sometimes they'll just like kind of take off and do their own thing, which I think is amazing. But I think for me too, I've just always done it. And so we have our team trainings and it's so nice to have our other leaders like come on and, take a Tuesday or whatever. But having a Ruby like lead their team, so how often do you have them or do they do their own? Because I'm sure you do you do like your own, like once a week training kind of thing? And then do you do it like once a month for their team, like their Ruby or Emerald team?
So kind of how we've done it. And I have amazing leaders on my team. So for me, it's hard. Like this was like really hard lesson for me to learn because I love doing Zooms. Like if I could just be on Zooms all day and get paid to be on Zooms all day, like that's what I would do. Like because I like I'm so passionate about talking to people. I'm passionate about leadership. Like I love like all of these like aspects of the business and like I want to help people. And like I don't know, that's like my thing, right? So like when I was going Prez, for instance, like I was like, I cannot get on a Zoom with anybody until I sign 2 customers that day. Because like that would be like, cause I would just love getting on like Zooms and talking to people and helping people and inspiring people. So you have to know like kind of those limits within yourself. So within that, I found that I was hanging on to doing trainings because I wanted to do them, not because nobody else was capable. And I felt like, God, I've been doing it for so long, but what if they forget this? And what if they forget that? And what if they forget this? But the thing is I realized that I had to empower my leaders. So I started delegating things. Okay. So, I do Monday night team Zooms. Okay. So what that is, it's just like us, like I can have a speaker on there, or maybe it's just housekeeping things, or maybe we're talking about the Connect app, or just kind of whatever, just like a connection piece for our team, for everybody to stay like around the fire. Okay. So I do that. And then I do a 30-minute leadership Zoom with my leaders beforehand. So my team Zooms are at 10, my leadership Zooms are at 9:30. Okay. And then, but on Sunday nights, we have newbie training. So one of my doubles, I actually like, she's super organized, which is not my strong suit. And I was like, hey babe, can you please start organizing these? And you can get on them sometimes, but I also want you to pick other leaders to get on them with you and you guys pair up. And so we do that Sunday nights. But what I tell people and what I've made very clear, like by going live on my team page and telling my leaders is it's very important that you don't rely on those Zooms, those team Zooms. That is an additional resource, right, for your newbies to hop on, but they need to hear you. And so you should get on a one-on-one Zoom or a one-on-one phone call. And during that time, you need to be asking them about what do they want out of the business? Like if you don't know what your teammates want, like you can't help them at all. Right? Like it's like, yeah, I'm going to help you. But they're like, wait, I was trying to go to the Bahamas. I wasn't trying to go to Florida. Right? Like you guys are going in completely different directions. Like in your mind, it's like, yeah, I'm going to hop on this plane because I really want to go on vacation. But like the plane's not really trying to take you where you thought you were going to go. And so they're feeling frustrated and confused. And you're like, well, why aren't you coming? Like, because but they're like, because that's not really where I want to go, or I don't understand why you're taking me to this spot, right? And so I think it's really important that we build that connection. And I highly recommend the book by John Maxwell. It's Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. And I've really tried to implement like that within our team and like asking questions like, okay, so, what do you want out of the business? Is it 500? Is it 5,000? Is it $50,000? And what is that? What would that do for you? And asking them like, why, what is that? And so we do like those weekly Zooms, for newbies, but I still highly try to like recommend. So if I sign, let's say one of my new girls signs somebody who's just a Ruby, let's say she does, I will tell that person, don't tell them about that Sunday night weekly newbie Zoom until you've gotten on a one-on-one Zoom or phone call with him, because they're not going to hear it. They're going to be so overwhelmed because we're talking about posting and adding, but we haven't gotten to the most important part is, what is this business going to do for them? Mm-hmm. And that's what they need to connect with and they need to know before they can hear any of the other technical stuff. Because when they see that vision, they're going to be so much more likely to want to work the business. So that's what we do for that. But to be honest, we're going to be changing how we do it, because I really want to implement more like action into those trainings and make it like a mini power hour. So we'll talk about, okay, let's get a post up and we'll give them a sample post. Right. And then we are going to start doing like the, okay, so now we're all going to send out this first initial message for 15 minutes, and then make sure any response you don't know how, you put it in the chat and we'll help you respond. So we're going to start making it more of like a mini power hour / mini training. So it gets people more into action, because what kills fear is action. And so the newbies can stop being afraid because they realize, oh, I sent out 20 messages. That really wasn't that scary, right? Because they did it with a bunch of other people with some freaking holiday music on and people dancing around and having fun, instead of being like, oh my God, I'm sitting on my couch or in my bed and I'm freaking nervous about all of these people responding. What if I say something that I don't know how to respond to? So those type of things, I think we're going to start implementing. But one thing you'll learn about me, and if you were on my team, it would be like a good thing, bad thing, is like I'm always trying to change stuff, because I don't think what worked even 2 months ago is going to keep working, right? Like, and so if we can continue to change things, like the same skeleton, the same base, right? Of like, these are the things we want to accomplish, but how we do that is going to look different every season of the business. So for me, that's kind of what we do, but I had to delegate a lot of that and it was hard, but it's been so amazing for those girls who have like, cause they were like excited to freaking do it. I was like feeling bad that I was asking them, but they were excited because they wanted to help. And that's what you'll realize about your team is like, if you just ask them to do certain things, even if it's just like, hey, will you post a tip in our group chat today? Like they're freaking excited. They're like, me? Yeah. Me? Like, you want me? You think I'm special enough to post something in the chat? Like, because be like, yeah, you're killing it. And then Cammie said one thing that's like, I've been like going hard on my team about is you need to be recognizing and rewarding the behavior you want to see more of. And so like, if you're not rewarding the fact that people are sending out 50 messages, who cares if they sign anybody from that? Because we all know if you send out 50 messages, you're not trying to sign somebody from those 50 messages today. You're trying to sign those people for next month or next week. Yeah, it's great if you do sign somebody today, but typically that's not the mindset we're trying to teach people. So I just told my team I'm going to copyright this quote that I came up with, but you can't control when the flowers sprout or when they bloom, but you can control how many seeds you plant. Okay. And so really hammering that into your newbies and saying, I don't care about the results. Let's not focus on the results right now. Let's focus on how many seeds did you plant today and reward that behavior, because we know that that will come with the results.
Yeah, I love that. For your newbie trainings on Sunday, who do you have do that?
So it's different leaders every time. It's 2 of them
Are
to
they
do it.
diamond above leaders, or do you have just rubies? Like, who do you have?
Sometimes, like, I honestly leave it up to, we have like a starting lineup chat. So that's like, it was 2018 starting lineup, and then throughout the year, I'll kind of prune it out. But to be in that starting lineup, you have to have, completed your steps at least 2 out of 3 months, because we all know something happens, right? Like there's a month in there where maybe you just sign 8 distributors and no customers, or, 20 customers and no distributors or whatever. But and I'm not saying that as an excuse, but I do understand life happens. And so, can you hear me, or am I frozen?
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. And so that is like kind of the requirement. And even though it sucks, because I'm red and blue. So like, I just want to have everybody to have so much fun and on my team, like to implement that. It kind of sucks and I have to like kick people out or whatever. But I always just have to tell my team, like, this is upholding the integrity of our leadership and on our team, right? It's not that I want to kick people out or make it like the Mean Girls Club, but at some point we have to have a standard of leadership that we expect from our teams. To continue for us to grow. That's a requirement. We can't just have people based on who we like the best in this chat. And so I always tell them, like, I'm doing it for you guys and you can always earn your way back in, but at some point I do have to help hold you accountable. So we have that chat, and we even have
if they don't complete their steps of success 1 month and they're out of the chat.
No, it has you have to do it at least 2 out of 3 months. So if there's like 2 months in a row that you don't do it, then we'll either have a conversation, because there's been times when like I've been understanding, because let's say there was like a death, like a really like close death, like a brother or something, and this, or like they had like a stillbirth, or just like crazy life things, and I know that they're still working. Like I always just pray on that part of it, because there's not like a perfect answer, but I just have a conversation with them. But I do that just really to hold myself accountable too, to making sure that I'm not choosing leadership based on who I like the best. Yeah. Because that's not how I want to, even though that's really in my heart how I want to. That's not like how I know in my head that I should run my business. So I have to kind of protect myself from myself, if that makes sense, by implementing those type of things. And so it might sound like a little cutthroat and like when I don't know, but that's just kind of what has worked for us. And to be honest, like my leaders really appreciate it, because sometimes they have like I've had to say like, hey, we need to stop complaining in this chat, or we're becoming the people that we're complaining about. Like we're always talking about, oh my God, can you believe this girl responded? And we're doing it to get comfort, right? And being like, oh, I can't believe this girl responded, like such a Bia, like, or whatever. But like, that's not helping. Like the chat needs to be positive and like what's moving us forward. So I'm just kind of a Nazi when it comes to culture. And so that is like really what that's about. Like I worked so hard to build the type of culture that we have on our team. And I will not let one person come in there and mess it up. And so I just have like really upfront conversations with people about it. And then anybody, let's say Courtney was on my team and she said, oh my gosh, I have this amazing leader. Like she can add people into that chat, because like even my triple who's charted for Prez, like she's amazing. She like loves like our leadership Zooms, and they're always super beneficial, because I always like try to bring really good content to them. And she will even like, I give them the responsibility. I would say, okay, Courtney, if you want to bring that girl on, then it's your responsibility, because if you're going to bring her on, then if she doesn't do this work, I don't want to have to be the one to kick her out. That's on you. So that's just another form of layered leadership, where I'm holding them accountable to being that leader, right? Of that. So that's more of like a higher level form of layered leadership, but just making sure that they recognize like, yeah, of course I'd love to pour into as many people as I can. But I need to make sure that you're doing your part in that piece of it. So we do that. I don't even remember the question you asked me. I'm just talking.
No, you answered it. Courtney said, so can rubies come in and executives as long as they're completing their steps?
One thing I just implemented is they have to be Ruby, and they have to have been in for 2 months, like at least 2 months. And here's why. So the reason is because not all rubies are created equal, not all emeralds are created equal, not all diamonds are created equal. And so I struggle to make it just like a diamonds and above chat for me personally. And I do see very beneficial things for having diamonds and above chat, just for communication purposes and different things like that. But for me, I want people who are rubies and really hungry and want to go diamond, I want them to see the level of conversation we're having. Yeah. And force their circle to be surrounded, to be up, so that moving up is going to be a lot easier because they already know how to act. Like, they already know what we're talking about. And that's one thing that I tell my, like my top leaders, I'm like, if you want your newbies your new leaders who are coming into this chat to be impressed, don't talk about stupid shit in this chat, like that has to hold you accountable. Don't talk about, and I'm not saying we can't have fun. Like, yeah, of course, like I've talked about, oh my God, like I just look like I, walked out of an electrocution chair, like when I got on that Zoom, or like something, I'll say something silly, but like, it's never negative. Like, it's never, oh my God, can you believe how this girl responded to me? Like, that's not the time and place for that. But I do really believe that it is beneficial for rubies and emeralds and whatever to see it. Now, I will tell you one thing I just started implementing, and I know, Amanda, if you want me to get off, like I told you, I talk a lot. So,
no, you're good.
So I know you're like 10 to 15 minutes, and I'm like on here for
no, you're fine.
For 40 minutes. One thing that we just started doing is I've started doing at the beginning of like the first Monday of each month, instead of doing like a team Zoom, I'm doing rank specific Zoom. So that's something that I've personally taken on and just going to do that specifically. But so I do a Zoom with just distributors, and it's called a game planning Zoom. It's the first Monday of every month. So it'll be January 1st Monday. And so, but I do like a game planning Zoom. So I'm going over like specific things that pertains to being a distributor, how when they sign people, sometimes they're not always going to work, like going over some distributor mindset stuff, but also like how to chart, because we all know people slip through the cracks. Like, you sign somebody who signed somebody who then signed somebody, and then you didn't even know this other girl signed up and they never got trained, and you're sitting there like, holy crap, how did that happen? It just happens. Right. And so having that like bigger, and you guys, I had just did it for the first time last week this month, and I had like more people get on just the distributor Zoom than are normally on my team Zoom. I had like 60 people just get on the distributor Zoom. Wow. And I was like, holy crap. And then I did executives, which was a smaller group, and then emeralds, rubies, and then emeralds. And then I did diamonds and above. But I will tell you, people in my starting lineup who were normally on our 9:30 leadership Zooms, they were pissed that they weren't on that diamonds and above Zoom, like in a good way. They were like, wait, we're not doing the leadership Zoom? I'm like, no, the leadership Zoom this week is the diamonds and above. And they were like, they were so annoyed because they were so used to getting fed that. And so it just gives them even more incentive to want to work. And so there is things that you do at certain ranks. There is privileges you get at certain ranks, but I don't want to make it all about that, because I do know you have to be that before you actually see it in E-Suite. Like, you have to be a diamond before your E-Suite will change to a diamond. So that's kind of my idea on that.
Yeah, I love that so much. That's good ideas. Okay, so how do you, let's see. Okay, so I'm sure, I don't know if you heard this on your team, but I feel like we hear it all around just because it's December, but we've heard like it's a December drought, or, it's just like so slow this month. Like, for me personally, like December, I always make this like one of my busiest months, like my biggest months, but I also work harder than I typically do the other months because it is a busy month, right? So my numbers I don't let my numbers change as far as like enrollments go or anything like that. And we've tried to really incorporate that into the team as well. So how do you keep your team going in December when it is so busy and they say, oh, well, it's slower because people don't want to spend money. Like, it's just obviously very false. So how do you let your team know, okay, this is like such a busy time, but it's just up to us to make it busy?
So I think that one thing that I told my team is, I'm like, are more people saying no, or are you just more distracted? Because it is very easy to get distracted. I'm the first person, like, I'm obsessed with Christmas. Like, I freaking would wear ugly Christmas sweaters all day, every day in December if I could. So like, for me, like, I love Christmas, so it's very easy. And I have to ask myself that question, which is why I know to ask it, because sometimes it's like, I'm just getting no, I'm just going to go put up more Christmas decorations or go Christmas shopping, or, we can fill our time with like other stuff. So it might not be that you're getting more no's. And my husband said this to me the other day. We were on a Zoom together and it was so funny. He said it, but he said, there will come a time when spring will ask, what did you do all winter? And I was like, damn, that's deep. Like, that's so deep, but it's so true, right? Like I was like, Aristotle, okay. But we have to realize that, like, who's working hard by, like, and who worked hard in the winter by what happens in January and February. Yeah. And so it's super important that you are telling your team that, and you're casting the vision. Okay. Like, you can't get mad at somebody who joined in June, who's never been through a January or February, to understand what's about to come if you haven't told them.
Yeah.
Like, how are they supposed to be like, oh yeah, well, it will pay off in January, if you're not saying, hey, listen, these seeds you're planting, I bet you a lot of the seeds are going to be spring flowers, because that's been my experience. And I know that this is going to happen. So trust me on this, trust the process, because I'm telling you, the harder you work this month, you're going to see it. The compound effect happened in January, but they're not going to know that until you tell them that.
Yeah.
And not just tell them one time, you guys. Like, do you think that your husband just tells you one time that he loves you and that's good? No, it's not good. You need to be told over and over. And when you look pretty, he needs to tell you every single time. And that's how our distributors are. They need to be told, and that needs to be reinforced every single time. So when they get discouraged, be like, girl, don't you remember what I told you? Like, listen, it's going to be lit in February and in January. I'm telling you, I've been in this business. Trust me when I say this, but keep planting those seeds. And you're going to be like, Kelsey, you are so freaking right. Like, I know you're going to say that, and I can't wait for you. Like, I literally always do that with my team, because they just need to be reminded. Like, I need to be reminded. Sometimes I'll call Aaron and I'll be like, okay, like when I was going press, I was like, is this even realistic? Like, can you just tell me this is realistic for this to happen? Like, we just need to be reassured sometimes that we're not crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. And so give your new DTs some grace, and even people you think you don't necessarily think of them as new DTs, but the people who haven't been through this before, give them some grace as well, because they don't know what's coming. They hear it, but they just need to be reassured. So I always just am trying to like reassure them and tell them how excited I am for, what's about to come. I use the description of, it's like, I've never surfed, but I kind of know like what it would be like to surf is like, before the wave comes, you like know it's coming. So you see it. You don't just sit there and wait for the wave to come, because it's literally going to come crashing on top of your head. What you do is you get on your paddleboard and you start paddling. And then so you can get the momentum. So when the wave comes, you ride it. Right. And so I told my team, I'm like, who's swimming right now? Because if you're not swimming, you're not preparing for the wave, and you're going to get friggin' eaten by it. So you just just paddle and just swim. And the faster you go now, the more that wave can take you with the momentum. And that's going to be what happens in January and February. It's about to be lit, but you have to be prepared for it to be lit. Like, you can't water concrete in January and February. Yeah. Like, because you can be like, yeah, well, it's lit for everybody else. Why is it not working for me? Well, because you weren't, like, you're watering concrete. You had no seeds planted. Yeah. You're watering empty soil. And so if you just continue to reinforce that and explain that to them and cast the vision and have that be like, this is like really where we're going. This is what's going to happen. But you just have to trust me in this process. It's literally like if I'm trying to tell you, like, you're blindfolded right now and I'm trying to tell you where to go, and you have to trust me. Like, you just have to trust me, because what's your alternative? And so just kind of, I don't know, like, I'm just a big believer in, like, when you cast vision and when people know like where you're going, they want to get on that plane with you. But nobody's getting on the plane with a like, nobody's ever got on a plane with there's no pilot and been like, yeah, just take me wherever, right? Like, they need to know, like, you're the pilot. This is where I'm going to take you, and kind of have that trust. So that's what I do. I also will tell them, you guys, this is like actually like the best time. Like, I actually personally think November is harder than December. And here's why. December, people are actually getting their credit card bills being like, I am really broke. Like, it's actually hitting them right now. And so if you're talking about, how you used to feel that way, they're already feeling that way. They don't have to wait till January to feel it. They're already feeling that way because they've already are buying their Christmas gifts. By this point, I bet you like a lot of people have already bought it, or they're waiting for their paychecks to buy it, and they feel annoyed and they feel frustrated already. So this is a perfect time to plant those seeds. The same thing, you guys, people have to go to holiday parties and look good. Like they don't want to go to holiday parties looking beat up. So I think that those are some things that you guys have to take in consideration is like, the holidays is 3 days. It's Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, Christmas, and maybe New Year's if you want to add that in there. Okay, that's 4 days. And so you're going to let 4 days out of 2 months change the way you work your business? That doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even make sense. That's why I'm like, you guys, it doesn't even make sense. Like, think about what you're saying. It doesn't make sense. It's like, oh, because I know that my milk is going to spoil in 2 weeks, I'm going to go ahead and throw it out. It doesn't make any sense. So like, just like drink it right now, like while you can, just plant the seeds right now while you can. And you know what? Some might not sprout, and that's okay, but you know, you're still doing your job. And that's the biggest thing I think that I tell them. I'm like, if you know you're doing your job, you know that God is going to bless that. But so much of it too is just an attitude and how you approach it. Because if you expect people to be like, oh, well, it's so tight, they're going to say that. I don't know how the law of attraction works, but it just works. And I don't, like, I used to be like, well, how does that work? Like, I don't understand it. I don't even care anymore. I just know it works. So I'm just going to be like, okay, I'm just going to attract, I'm going to think about what I want instead of what I don't want. And so for me, like, even in, whether it's the holidays or whether it's, you're getting the same excuse over and over, I personally have found that with that, I think it happens because you haven't overcome that own objection in your mind. So here's the thing is if you have a new DT and they're like, everybody keeps telling me that they don't have money, then I'll say, okay, well, let's talk about this. Do you think $99 is a lot of money to start this business? And typically it comes with their belief, right? Like if they don't like, and then if you help show them the value in this kit and what all comes with it, and you build their belief around it, they won't even hear people say that because they're going to be like, I don't even hear people say the kit is expensive because I think that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Okay. Like I don't even hear that, but I don't even hear the fact that I don't have time because I know that everybody can have time to do this. So the thing that you haven't overcome in your head is typically what excuse you hear the most of. So if you think it's a valid excuse because it's the holidays, you're going to get that excuse all the time.
Mm-hmm. So when you have a distributor who's like, yeah, I think it is expensive, what do you say to them?
I just say, okay, I'm like, well, so have you used your products? And typically they haven't. So I say, okay, do a wrap tonight and then call me tomorrow. And I want you to tell me if you think that was worth $25. Mm-hmm. And so I like get them understanding what the value is in the product, but how can you understand the value of something you're not using? Right? Like you can't. And so they're like, oh, I just paid $99 to start this business and nothing's happened for me yet. Well, of course they feel like that. Like, of course they feel like it's because they don't understand the value in the business yet because they're not making money, but you can understand the value within the products. You can help them see other people's stories. One of the biggest things I do with newbies is like, I understand who they are. Like, where are you at in the process? Are you married? Do you have kids? Are you like super broke? Like you're super broke, or are you just like, you want extra? And then based on that, I give them leaders to follow who they're going to relate to, because guess what else that does? Helps them see the vision. Because that leader is always sharing their story and they're going to be reading that story and connect with that and see that if that girl can do it, then I can too. I remember watching Jade Hooper's YouTube being like, whoa, this girl had it way worse than me and she is successful. And wow, if that girl is making that kind of money, then, and she buys her clothes at Walmart, then Lord have mercy, I know that I can be as somewhat successful in this business. And no offense to Jade Hooper, but that's what makes her the best, is because she can freaking do that to people. Like she is telling them like, how vulnerable she was and where she felt and how she was like at, and people relate to that. And they're like, dude, I felt those same things, but you still felt them and you were still successful. So understanding. And when you have new distributors like that, use the feel, felt, found rule. Dude, I understand when I first joined, I totally felt that way. I understand how you feel, like, because I was like, dude, this is a lot of money, because I was like, $99, I can do damage in Target with $99. And I understand how you feel, but what I've learned and what I've found is that these products are worth so much more than $99, and you get 5 samples like of different products in your kit now. Like, that is crazy. And so I just hype it up, let them know the value in it, and like what I got in my kit, which was freaking nothing compared to what they get now. And so like just giving them perspective will help.
Yeah. I love that so much. Do any of you guys can you guys type some questions in the chat if you guys have some questions to ask? Okay, so one more thing while we get some questions, and I know we're almost at our hour, but okay, just one more thing. So what do you do, like, you kind of already like said this, but is there anything else that you do when you have a distributor, whether they're new or they've been in it for a couple years and they're just feeling like discouraged and they're just feeling, unmotivated? Is there anything you do in those situations? Because we all go through that. We all go through the, ups and downs in our business, but there's certain things that I do personally that gets me out of those things. So how do you coach that to your team who are feeling that, whether it's a leader who's been in for a while or somebody new?
Yeah. So for me, it really depends on the person, because I know, like, and I know that's a horrible answer and you're like, doesn't help at all, but it really does, because what helps for me is not going to help for somebody else. Like I'm like, I need somebody to be like, okay, you're sucking at this. Like, you need to start doing this better and change this, and it will help. And I'll be like, okay. Like, that's what I need. But some people would literally cry in a corner if I said that to them. And it's not that it's bad. Like, I just don't know. Like, I don't want to assume. Like, I always tell my team, like, that golden rule that you were taught, like, treat others how you want to be treated. That's true up into a certain extent, but then it stops, because, I know that not everybody wants to be treated the way I want to when it comes to criticism, or when it comes to how can I help you get over this? So, for me, when somebody is coming to me, I always ask questions first. Okay. Because what I got into the habit of, like, after I went double, pretty much, I think is when this started, is like, I kind of admittedly became like, I felt like I was like a know-it-all. Like, I thought I knew everything because I went double and everybody was where they wanted to be where I was. And I was like this really cool person, even though I really was actually really not cool, by doing that. But I got into that mindset. And so I felt like I had all the answers, and I wasn't asking any questions about why they were feeling that way, because I was projecting what had happened to me and putting that on them, right? Even though their experience was totally different. Even though we may have ended up in the same spot, their way that we got there was totally different. So for me, what I do is I just typically say, like, okay, so you're feeling like this. And you guys, let me tell you this really cool trick that I learned. So I have to come back to charge my computer. I learned that so let's say, Amanda, you were like coming to me and you were like, okay, like, I just feel like so frustrated. Like, I'm doing everything you tell me I'm doing, and I can sign a couple customers, but I can't sign any distributors. I know we've all freaking heard that one, right? So, I would just say, okay, so you feel like you're signing customers, but not distributors. And I would kind of just sit there for a second. If you use like the last 4 sentences and you want somebody to, for 4 words of a sentence, and you want somebody to expand on it, you just repeat it, and typically they will keep explaining themselves. It's the craziest thing. Somebody did it to me once, like probably 10 minutes after they told me this rule, and they were like, so your husband coaches basketball? And I was like, yeah, he coaches basketball. And I like went into our whole freaking life story, and I was like, what the heck? Like, how did that just happen? Because he was like, see, it worked. And I was like, oh my gosh. So if you want them to just explain themselves more, sometimes you just have really short people, but like for most of the time, people want to talk about themselves. Like, not even in like a crazy way, but just like they're just going to explain, and they want to tell you how they're feeling. And a lot of times people will feel so much better when they tell you and they just get it out. how they're feeling and they can verbalize it. Because sometimes we have all this built up frustration and we don't even know where it comes from until we start talking about it. And so I a lot of times just let people talk and I try to get to the bottom. So I'll say, how long have you been feeling this way? When do you think this started? When's the last time you signed it? I'll just keep asking questions, you guys. And they don't even have to be like really like good questions, but just so that you can like understand like, oh, this person has been feeling this way for a really long time. So this probably like, let's talk about, first off, like why she's feeling this way. But next time we need to tell her to come to me before it builds up. And you can pick up on other things that like come along the way. So if somebody said, I've been just feeling this way for the last like 2 weeks. I feel like my hosted posts aren't working. I feel like, this isn't happening. And I'll say, okay, well, what are you doing anything different with your hosted post? And they'll say no. And then I'll say, okay, well, how's your adding going? How's your messaging going? And I'll go through each of those. I call them like the core four. So posting, messaging, adding, following up. And I'll go through each of those. And typically they'll be honest with me about like, my adding is inconsistent. Or a lot of times they'll be like, I'm messaging, and I'll ask, how many people are you messaging a day? And they'll be like, oh, I messaged like 5 people yesterday. And it's like, okay, well, somehow there was a disconnect between that. And so I always just say, I'm so sorry. Like, and I always fall on the sword. It's so much easier to fall on the sword. And if you want people to receive what you're saying, you have to take some accountability for any type of miscommunication first. Okay. Because if you be like, well, you didn't listen and nobody's going to hear you. Okay. Like I told you 5 times, like that's what we want to say in our heads. Like I told you freaking 5 times to message at least 50 people a day. And I told you to add at least that, like, that's how literally I want to react sometimes. But I'm like, okay, maybe but you don't know, like when you were telling them like they were on the phone and their baby was crying and, it was just a bad like environment. When you told them, you have just no idea what happened. So I've learned just not to judge and not to, I remember like being so annoyed one time and I like said something to this girl and I was like, I feel like I've been trying to get a hold of you. And like, literally I felt so bad because she told me like her grandpa died and like all this stuff happened. And I just like ate my words. And so never again will I like do that. Like, will I just assume? I always assume the best, and it's made my business so much more fun because I don't work my business in a negative headspace. I just assume they didn't know. Like I assume that they didn't hear what I tell them, or I forgot to tell them, or whatever. And I assume responsibility because it makes it so much more fun when you can take the ownership and you can change it versus waiting on other people to change. Because then you're not getting so frustrated with other people. So let me see. How do you keep momentum on your team when they get discouraged? I just keep casting the vision. Like we've had a lot of stuff happen on our team, like a lot of infertility. I had a girl who had a stillborn baby at 21 weeks. I had like literally just crazy things, divorce, death. Like there's just been so many things. And so for me, I just always tell them, like, obviously not like right after it happens, but I'm like, dude, like this is like, you're going to be on stage and you're going to be sharing this story with so many different people. And so many people are going to be inspired by how like you just persevered through this. And I give them typically like 1 or 2 words to focus on. So I'm always like, dude, perseverance needs to be your word for the rest of the year. And I like will give them something clear to focus on. And I just talk about all the good things that they're doing, because it's so easy in this business to point out the bad things and be like, oh, I didn't get enough messages out, because you can always be doing more. That's the scary thing about the business, is you can be like, I sent out 100, but I should have sent out 200. And there's people who send out 300. And I can't believe that I only did this. And you can be so hard on yourself. So I was just focused, and we're so hard on our own self. So I was just focused on what they did good. So I'm always just telling them like, dude, like your posts are so amazing. Like I can't believe that, like, oh my gosh, how many people, did you get to message today? So I try to stay positive on that, which is a learned thing for me, because I typically am very, I don't want to say critical, but I have like a very growth oriented mindset. So I'm always trying to look to get better, but that can be very dangerous, because sometimes when you're always looking to get better, you forget to think about what you already did good. And it's very dangerous, because, so I just am very, like, I had to learn to like look for the positive too, instead of looking for, hey, how can I get better? Which is not a negative mindset. It's just a growth one, where you're looking and you're growing and you're hungry to like change and get better, but also recognize what was going well, because you can learn just as much from success as you can from failure.
Yeah.
So I just keep the vision going for them. I tell them that it's going to pay off, but I also give them very concrete things to work on. Okay. Like I don't want them to come and just feel like they just got a pep talk from me because they're going to need one tomorrow. If that's the case. But if I give them very concrete things to change, then I feel like at least they can be like, okay, like I need to work on this. And then the next time I talk to them, I'll be like, how is it going since we talked last with this? Right. So that way, if they're not doing it, they're going to be like, well, of course nothing's changed.
Yeah.
Right. And I just don't want it to be like a negative thing. I want them to always feel like they can be honest with me. And I feel like that they do feel like that because I've always been honest with them.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. So how do you help your team see the vision better when you're still not where you'd like to be?
Really good question. I do a lot of self-development at that point because you have to lead yourself before you can lead anybody else. And when I say leading, leadership is an attitude, you guys. People overcomplicate it and they're like, a leader has to do this and has to do this and has to do this and has to do this. But leadership, difference between a leader and somebody's not a leader is attitude, right? So if you think about it, the lion is the king of the jungle because of what he believes about himself and what he thinks about like the giraffe and the elephant. Giraffe and the elephant are way bigger than the freaking lion, you guys. Like, think about it. It's not about like your talent or your skill or how many followers you have right now or whatever. Like, it's not about like for the lion, it's not about the physical size. It's when he sees the elephant or he sees the giraffe, like he's not scared. Like he is not worried. Like he does not feel like, oh, they're bigger than me or oh, this or that. Like it's literally leaders are born when they have a new belief system. When you start changing the way you believe in things or think about things, I think you will become a leader in that. So leadership changes first off in your thoughts. And that's how you can really develop awesome leadership is when you start changing the way you think about yourself, which in turn will change the way you think about other people. And so like, when that happens, I also get real with like my expectations. It's like, okay, if I'm not where I want to be people, like if I'm not where I want to be like right now, then like, what was my expectation? Where did I want to be? Maybe why am I not there? You know, and what can I do differently to change it? Because people will start, this is what I've realized probably within the last 6 months, is that people will start making changes when they realize they have that control to make a change. A lot of people feel like they're like, not to say like a victim mentality, but it kind of is, but they just feel like, oh, it happened to me. Like somebody left my team or this happened or nobody's messaging me back. Like you have to help turn it to where they're in control again, and you're empowering them to take control because that will help make changes. So the way you can become more successful, in my opinion, is changing the idea about like who you are in your head. So most of our perceptions are based on what other people think of us, right? So I always have people say, oh, I'm only a ruby. I'm only an emerald. I'm like, what do you mean you're only? Have you not looked at like the pay thing, like where it says the percentage of the people that are rubies or are emeralds? You're in like the top percentage. Like, I don't even know what you're talking about. But we have that perception because that's how we think other people think of us. Not because that's how we really think of ourselves, but we've almost internalized that from what other people think of it. So you have to realize that we have to get very clear about who we think we are and hold on to that, because you have to be really like just very clear about why you think you're in this business and what you're like, where you want to go, and hold on to that instead of where you are right now. And so if you think that, you know, that like you're not where you're at, then tell your team, I'm not where I want to be. I know you guys probably aren't where you want to be, but here's where I'm going to go. Who wants to come with me? And it's okay to tell them you're not where you want to be. Like, I don't want to join a team of somebody who's already where they want to be. Like, I'd rather join a team of an up and coming double or triple than somebody who's already reached ambassador and coasting. Because I know I can be a part of that. I know I could run. I mean, I wouldn't even know that before I joined. Okay. So I'm just saying, but like now looking back, I'm saying like, if I'm thinking about that, I want to be a team who's currently running, not already at the finish line. And so cast that vision for them, tell them that, let them know that. And then I also make sure you're being very aware of who you're surrounding yourself with, because like leaders will surround themselves with people based on where they want to be and not where they are now. So surround yourself with people who intimidate you, who inspire you, who make your dreams feel really small, who just keep you going. Because if you're keep running into like all these pigeons and all these ducks, you're flying too low. You got to fly with the eagles. You got to fly with the eagles. Because actually, I didn't know this, but I was reading this book, and eagles fly at like a certain altitude, and they know they'll never run into pigeons or ducks because no other bird flies at that altitude. I was like, dude, that is so cool. Like, that was literally so cool.
That is cool. Well, my team is just loving this. They are just obsessed with you already. So I
am so
excited that you were able to pour into us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I told you I talk a lot, so sorry this was a little
this was so perfect, and I just feel like it was just like a godsend for you to, you know, reply to that post and to come on. And this is so last minute, so we are just so appreciative of you.
Of course.
Yeah, I think Chelsea.
You guys are so sweet, and yeah, you guys are so sweet. So if you guys need anything, feel free to reach out. And I'm excited for where you guys are going. I know Amanda is such an awesome leader, and you guys are so, you know, you're so lucky to have somebody like that leading you. But also, like, I always tell people, I'm like my presidential, I'm like, don't ever be like, I'm the presidential on Kelsey's ambassador chart. Be like, I'm a presidential. Like, it's okay to be your own entity and be excited about that. Because I know that, like, I mean, I was under Erin, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, dude, how am I ever going to be my own person? But you just realize, like, there is room at the top for you. And so don't limit yourself based on, you know, don't be like, well, man, it's so awesome. Like, I can't, you have a place. And so find that, and, you know, you will be amazed at what happens and how proud you can be of yourself, of where you come from. So just keep that in mind, because you guys, the time's going to pass anyways. Like, it's going to pass, you know? So just know that he will provide for you. And thank you guys so much. This was fun.
Thank you so much, Kelsey. You are so amazing, honestly. Like, I'm just so excited just to get to know you more, and just to, I know my team is now just completely upset.
I know. And if you guys see me at conference, make sure you come up and say hi and all that stuff. So we'll talk soon, and thank you guys.
Thank you, Kelsey, so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. All right, guys. She's so awesome, huh? Oh my gosh. So I made a post in our Lifers page, and I'm like, okay, this is so last minute, but who wants to jump on our leadership Zoom with us? And there were so many people who said yes, but Kelsey messaged me, and she's like, hey, if you need me, I'll do it for you. And so I'm like, okay. And so we were going to have a few other people, but she was able to, and she's so amazing. I've seen her before, and I kind of know who she is, but we've never met, and she's just so incredible. So it's just amazing. Like, you know, obviously you guys, we can see like how this business, like, there's so many different people in this business. And like she said, like, we're all so different, but there's so much room for us at the top. There's room for everyone at the top, you know, and that's the beauty of this business. So how do you guys feel? What were your guys's, do you guys love that? Yeah. Okay. I can't hear any of you guys. So I know I loved her too. She was so awesome. Yay. Okay. I know I'm so excited, and I'm very excited for you guys who have jumped on. I know this was so last minute, but I think this has given us some like really good ideas. I mean, I think that our team is just so incredible, and we have such an amazing unit for our team. And but I love always like implementing new things, just like she said. Like, I'm always like, we're always trying to like go with the growth, right? And so that's why we do these Zooms, so that we can learn and grow and just become a student of this business. So I'm super excited, you guys. I'm so pumped. So if you guys have questions, just, you know, you guys can message me. On Zooms all day tomorrow trying to, oh, that's awesome. Awesome, Rachel. If you guys have questions, you guys can reach out to me. Otherwise, I hope that you guys have a beautiful weekend. I'm going to go live in just a minute. If Amy's still on here, I'm going to do her gift. Is there anybody else that did the 200 that I'm missing? I need to do Amy's really quick. So, all right, my friends. Well, talk to you soon. Thanks for jumping on. Bye, guys.